Hey everybody, Jared Jones. The price of everything is up. Real estate is up, commodities prices are up, stocks are up. And if you've gotten pre-qualified and you've tried to get into the housing market game, particularly in Central Florida, you know that it is next to impossible. Most of my homes that we've put on the market in the last 30, 45 days have all been met with double-digit multiple offers, selling far above asking price. In many cases, we're seeing anywhere from 40 to 90 showings in the first 2 to 3 days. Obviously, the Fed's printing money. They're pushing so much cash in the economy that there's creating a massive amount of demand for just about anything you can buy. Now, on top of all this, we're seeing more institutional interest in the housing market than we've seen in a very long time. Everybody that even stopped buying early on the pandemic, the Zillows, the Open Doors, the OfferPads, all the New York money is in the marketplace competing with regular home buyers who are struggling to find homes for themselves. And all of this creates more and more demand and causes prices of real estate to sell at record times and cause home values to skyrocket. Basically put, there's no static inventory on the market. Everything that hits the market is immediately bought up. But how long does this ride last? I mean, we came out of the pandemic last year with a ton of steam. The housing market came from after the 15 days to slow the curve. The housing market went gangbusters all last summer and it never slowed down. The difference is there's way less inventory now than even last summer. You got to understand there were people that were holding off last summer because the unknowns of the pandemic were very new. The danger of possibly showing your house was a very high risk. Now we're past that, and in most of the major counties around Central Florida, we're at 60 to 80% less inventory than we were back then in static, active, available, you can shop it, you can see it, you can buy it type inventory. What could stop this whole ride? Well, the only thing in the foreseeable future that could change any of this is the Fed. Jerome Powell, for the most part, the Fed chairman, has been saying we don't need to curtail the inflation. Inflation's not a problem. He's been constantly calming the markets through this. However, I think the last 30 to 45 days, we've seen him kind of talk out both sides of his mouth. He's kind of started talking about changing the pattern of how the Fed is pushing against inflation. Now, if that does happen, and that could be as soon as the fall, where the Fed becomes a little bit concerned, stops buying mortgage-backed securities, and you could see interest rates jump in a day. I mean, right now, the Fed is buying around $40 billion a month in mortgage-backed securities. If that changes, then you will see interest rates increase. As we know from the past, a change in interest rates can dramatically affect the price of real estate. In fact, a good rule of thumb is the 10-to-1 rule, where 1% change in interest rate can affect the market by 10% in price. If you don't think that's true, go back to the summer of 2018 when Fed policy started to change in real time. You immediately saw the housing market change 9-10%, and as they rolled back off those policies, prices went with it, and those increased again. One thing we can be sure of is in the near future, there's going to be a massive amount of volatility. But let's get into home prices. There's some really interesting things, some new benchmarks that were hit in multiple categories, even as recent as the last 30 days. Now, all the category points that I'm going to show you today are data points from Lake and Orange County. Out of the counties in the Orlando metro area, those are two of the majors. And I believe if I were to throw in Seminole County and Osceola, it still would not change these numbers too much. But again, that's where the data is coming from. Check this out. So what you're looking at right here is a graph of Orange and Lake counties, two of the major counties in the Orlando metro area, starting with data for the average day on market. Now, this over here is current data. So right here at the very bottom of this graph, you can see that we've just hit 81 days on the market. That's market wide. So that would include vacant land, for instance, that might have been on the market for like 3 years, right? Versus all the homes that are single family, the majority of which are selling in under 5 days. But as you can look back several years, and this is all the years I have combined, that we have not been to this point really since 2005. So if you look back here at 2005, it was very, very low. In fact, towards the end of beginning of 2005, into 2004, we were hovering at 40, 50 days on market, which was an extreme cycle of several months of very low inventory from 04 and 05 before it started to climb again. But we just hit 81 days on market in April, which is the lowest day on market time frame that we've seen since back here in November of 2005. Next, we have average price data for these two counties. As you can see, we just hit 411,000 average price homes sold Lake and Orange County. Incredible, incredible. The month prior to that was 388. So a massive leap. 3 months back, January was a 366 average. So incredible. You can see too that we are much higher than the peak that was experienced back in 2007. 2007, home prices peaked at an average price for these two counties at around 340,000. You can see we have absolutely blown by that in the last 2 years. I'll actually narrow this graph down so you can kind of see a current year graph just to see the pace of the market, okay? So again, this is a 13-month running graph, average price, Orange and Lake, showing 20% return on your price. Incredible price jump there. On screen now, you have units sold. As you can see, this black line above the other lines, this is a 5-year graph. So you can see all these lines bunched together really represents most of the sell-through for 2017, 18, 19, and 20 down here. You can see right here, this green graph that drops down here at the bottom was last year during the COVID lockdown. And then this year, units sold is actually riding over top of the prior years. So what you're seeing is that while there is no active inventory for you to purchase, there's still a high volume of transactions being sold, which just means demand is incredibly high. There's just a lot of people wanting the same seat on the bus. Here's an interesting graph, and this is also one of the record-setting graphs, is sold to ask ratio. So what this graph is telling us is as a percentage of the seller's asking price, how close are they getting to that price? Again, you see all prior years down here at the bottom. They're all kind of really stacked together around the 97% mark, almost 98%, which has really been the average up until now. 2021 has taken off like a rocket. Next, we have homes that sold over 100% of asking price. You can see that that chart is now showing a 54% chance that the homes are selling, they're selling above their asking price, which is consistently higher. Most of the time beforehand, you had maybe 1 out of 3, and now that figure is over half. Now, the last graph I want to show you to illustrate how crazy the market is right now is the volume graph. So this is the value of solds. So essentially what this graph shows us is in monetary value, this is how much money was transferred on homes in Lake and Orange County. You can see last month that it hit nearly $1 billion in transaction volume. To give you an idea of how incredible that is, if you went back just to April in 2017, we didn't even do $500 million. So you have double the transaction volume of the same month just 4 years back. So that's the update. I gotta tell you folks, it's a weird market for sure. But I gotta tell you, at the same time, as low as interest rates are, I'd still buy a house. I mean, your alternative is renting, and renting is the same dogfight right now. Be wise about it. Don't overbuy. Don't make yourself house poor. But when renting is the alternative and the nature of the rental market being the way it is now, there's very little rental supply. Rental pricing is also experiencing an increase in pricing pressure. So the reality is if you can get in, but it is not for the faint of heart. We'll talk to you real soon.